Ladies and gentlemen, from the studios in the wrestling capital of the South, it's another terrific episode of The BENGEBUSTER Show. Please welcome your host, Tony Binge.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of The BENGEBUSTER Show. I hope everyone has had a good week and a good, just trying to stay healthy as possible with all this crazy COVID stuff going on. I know the world's crazy. I'm seeing all kind of stuff online where people are losing their mind over racism and it's all kind of crazy stuff. So the BENGEBUSTER Show is going to kind of take us away from all that. We're going to have a good time, and I'm excited about this week's show. I've got two of my closest friends are going to be joining me tonight on this show. We're going to be breaking down some classic wrestling and finding out some old telling some old stories. It's going to be a good time, and but without any further ado, I'm going to bring on my co-host, Chris Plano. Chris, what is going on?
Tony, thank you for having me back on. It's such a pleasure to be on each and every week with you. Yes, and God, what a crazy world we live in. I am so excited about tonight's program. When you told me we were going to kick it back to 1994 and some World Championship Wrestling, WCW Fall Brawl, I was just tickled pink. And our special guest this week, I am just fired up for the show tonight. And who knows, it might end up being a three-way dance in the ring before we're over with this evening.
I'm telling you, Chris, it's going to be insane. The show that I have planned for tonight, and our guest, of course, is he's been in the wrestling business a long time. He's been my friend a long time. He and I go way back. We first met at our good friend Jimmy Valiant's wrestling camp, and from the moment we met, we just like you and I, Chris, instant friends. And I'm talking about he's a former NWA North American Tag Team Champion, former AIWF World Tag Team Champion. I am talking about none other than Mr. Drake Tungsten. Drake, what is going on? Welcome to the BENGEBUSTER Show.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to spending a little bit of time with you guys. Maybe touching on, like you said, touching on some 90s wrestling and just having a few laughs tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be great. But right now, I kind of done things a little different. Normally, Chris and I will break down this crazy world, but I wanted to kind of get some of your input on this too, Drake. It seems like every day, guys, we turn on the TV, we turn on the news, and we got people, rioting and protesting and not wanting to wear their mask, not wanting to, whatever the case is. Man, it's just a crazy time, and this crazy time is definitely affecting our livelihood of doing our thing we love the most, and that's pro wrestling. How is this COVID-19 affecting you guys?
I'll have Drake go first. Go ahead, Drake.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Chris. It's been really weird, Tony. When all this thing, it seems like it kind of hit all out of nowhere. I mean, 1 minute we're living our normal lives. The next thing you know, we're cooped up in our houses. Everything's shutting down, and it's times like I've never seen. I mean, I'm only 41, and I've never experienced this in my lifetime. But I tell you, it's in a weird way, and maybe it's not a weird way, I don't know, but it's been kind of a blessing in disguise. Yeah, my wife and I both have full-time jobs, so we're constantly busy with that. Then we've got to rush home, got to try to get the kids fed. We've got a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. We've got to try to get the 6-year-old. We had to try to get his homework done and make sure that he was getting a bath, and then the 1-year-old, make sure he was getting in bed. Yeah, the 6-year-old's involved in hockey, so we were on the go 2 days a week with that. Plus, we were season ticket holders of our local hockey team. We were always at the games. I was still wrestling, and then all of a sudden, boom, it stops. And you're forced to spend more time at home. but I can honestly say that it hasn't been a bad thing. It's made me truly realize what's more important in life, the going and the doing, or what you got there at home.
Right.
And it's been fantastic. I mean, I've literally watched my 1-year-old, grow up. I mean, I'm working from home right now, and I'm watching him grow up daily, and I'm loving it. It's. I think there's a silver lining in all this that's going on with the COVID. I think people just need to open their eyes and see what that silver lining really is.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. What about you? How? I mean, I know you and I talk each week, but any new any new thing in your life as far as this COVID-19, or are you still doing things kind of normal?
I mean, I'm obviously I am back in the office working now. I was working from home for probably about 10 weeks. Now I am back in the office, and it's a whole lot different. I mean, we're kind of just a skeleton crew. It's kind of a really eerie feeling. It's tough to really put your thumb on it to say, like, wow, like, what's going on here? We know what's going on, but it's like, wow, is this really happening kind of thing? And walking around with masks. I got people walking around with gloves on, and I live right in Charlotte, Tony, as you know, and just today they announced starting tomorrow, restaurants will be closing at 11 o'clock starting tomorrow. They're cutting off alcohol sales here. Charlotte is really hit pretty bad here in the state of North Carolina. It's a big state, but Charlotte and Raleigh are the toughest hit areas, and it's very difficult. And some people have not wrapped their hands around this, especially our young population, that think, oh, well, this is just going to magically go away, and it's some kind of hoax of some sort, and we're watching some delusion on television, and so now they're really putting the parameters down, and we really want this state to move forward into phase 3 and 4, because some states up north right now are into phase 4. We're still stuck in phase 2 till at least August 7th, and who knows beyond that, but we need to really make some positive steps forward, and it's really going to take everyone's in this together, and only we're going to get through this together, but we got to take some more positive steps, I think, as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know, I work in the school system as my real deal job, and I heard on the news just this past week that in Mecklenburg County, I think they had like over 2,000 layoffs within the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system. So I'm really lucky. I was told that the school I work for, they've already got their budget for the year, so I definitely have a job at least for the rest of this year. But hopefully I'm just hoping that here in the next few months we can kind of go back to a little bit of normalcy. Hopefully be able to, Chris, to go back to some concerts, and Drake be able to put our tights and boots back on and get back out there and do what we love. And but I think all three of us are doing our part. We're taking care of ourselves and our families, and like you say, Drake, we that's a blessing, because I'm like you, I have a little one too. Mine's not quite as little as yours. And see, Chris, I ain't the one that still got it out there and producing the kids. Drake's still rocking and rolling, man.
Man, I can't relate to either you, either gentleman. When Jake's talking about a 5 or 6 year old and a 1 year old, I'm like, oh my gosh. But hey, Kristen is my backbone, so I'll tell you that she keeps me in check and keeps me on the straight and narrow. But I am in you guys, because I can only imagine what you're going through with young kids and children through this. Because it's a change for everyone, and it is the new normal. It's the new normal for now, and hopefully we can get back to the regular normal here soon enough. But we need to get a vaccine here, sooner than later. I think that's going to be the ultimate cure for this. Yeah,
for sure. Now we're getting ready to go into our the main show, the podcast. We're going to be talking to Drake about his wrestling career and how many years he got into business, how he got into the business. A lot of hopefully some some good road stories that Drake and I have kind of lived together. And Chris, I know right before we went on the air, Drake told me he's got a story for you that's going to blow you away, and we're going to get to that, fans, just a few more minutes. But right now, we're going to go to our first edition of the show, the flashback. This week's flashback, we are talking about WCW's Fall Brawl '94 that came from the in Roanoke, Virginia, and that's coming up next on the Binge Buster Show.
This week's classic flashback.
All right, fans, welcome to the Binge Buster Show. As our flashback segment this week is covering WCW's Fall Brawl. It came from the Roanoke Civic Center on September the 18th, 1994. It drew attendance of 6,500 people, with the main event being the Nasty Dreams, American Dream Dusty Rhodes, Dustin Rhodes, and the Nasty Boys taking on the Stud Stable, consisting of Terry Funk, Arn Anderson, Bunkhouse Buck, and Colonel Robert Parker, with Colonel Robert Parker's manager Ming. What a terrific pay-per-view! And actually, I think Drake, were you not in attendance at this show?
I was. A friend of mine from high school and we decided let's go ahead and go. Now, back then, fall of '94, I would have been in 10th grade, so I would have just started in high school up here. But yeah, we decided we'd go ahead and go. I don't remember who actually got the tickets, but we were sitting 7th row, facing the entryway. So we had a great shot of everything. And actually, if you go back and you watch the pay-per-view on the WWE Network, there at the very beginning, you'll see the camera on Mean Gene and Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan. You can actually see me walk in behind them. I'd weaseled my way up front, and you can actually you can see me, a much thinner, younger version, just hooping and hollering and being a fool.
Man, I tell you that back then, Chris, and I know that you can definitely relate to this. It was so exciting to know when WCW was coming to town, because there was so much electricity in the air every time they would have a pay-per-view. And incidentally, I think this would have been the final year that a Fall Brawl was actually held outside of North Carolina, because I think starting in '95 they had the Fall Brawl in Asheville, and I actually went to that one.
Yeah.
And then after that, Fall Brawl home became the Winston-Salem Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum. But looking at this show, Fall Brawl '94, a lot of cool stuff going on, but also a lot of weird stuff going on. One of the things about this show that I really I wish that it wasn't a dark match, and I know Drake actually got to see this match, but I'm sure that this match was extremely fun to watch. I'm talking about Brad and Brian Armstrong taking on the newly formed team of Bad Attitude, consisting of Steve Kern and Beautiful Bobby Eaton. So right there, you got two guys from two really cool tag teams from the '80s. You got Steve Kern, a member of the Fabulous Ones, and Bobby Eaton, a member of the Midnight Express. And I think the coolest thing about this tag team, guys, is the fact that Beautiful Bobby Eaton is the only guy that I can think of that that took a team from the '80s that was popular. I'm talking about the Fabulous Ones, and he actually formed a team with both members. And even though Bad Attitude didn't really get the push that I think that they deserved, I think if they had, I think Bad Attitude would have been almost as good as the Midnight Express. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Drake. I'll have you go first with the take.
All right. No, I would definitely agree with you there, Tony. I mean, you've got the common denominator, like you said, is Beautiful Bobby Eaton, and on a professional level, or let's just say on a personal level, I love Bobby. Bobby's great. You always hear people talk about how much of a sweetheart he is, and and I will echo that as well. He's just one of the nicest people. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Bobby. As far as in ring ability, he wasn't a great talker, and that's okay. That's why he had Cornette.
Right.
But when it came down to tag team action, tag team psychology, he was it. And until FTR, formerly the Revival, came along, I honestly don't think that there was another tag team or tag team members that could touch Bobby Eaton.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. And I've heard going back and watching some of the old WCW stuff when it was still NWA and getting ready to switch over to WCW, and Jim Ross Jr. was the commentator, and I heard him say on multiple pay-per-views that Bobby Eaton is so good he don't even know how good he is. He's so smooth. He does moves that I don't think he even knows he's doing them until he does them. And back then, I mean, Bobby was such an innovator. Him and Dennis Condrey were a good team at the Midnight Express. I liked them, but my favorite combination was him and Stan, because it seemed like once him and Stan got together, they really came out with some great double team moves that you never seen before, and looked really good on television.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So moving on to so that was a dark match. So I guess the first match on this pay-per-view was for the WCW World Television title, Johnny B. Bad against Lord Steven Regal. And I was watching this pay-per-view as I was preparing for this podcast. And Drake, I have to say, and Chris, it was really funny seeing Steven Regal come out wearing that wig.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and this match for an opening match was a great match. I mean, Steven Regal at this part of his career was over in WCW. At this point, Johnny B. Bad on the scene, and a title change for the opening match as well. The World Television title, which, obviously fostered out of the NWA into WCW, a coveted title that, you could name the names who have held that right down the line. But, hey, I mean, what a great way to start it off. I mean, a title change to really lay the groundwork for the rest of the evening. And Steven Regal, probably one of the best shooters in the business that there is, if not one of the best.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Absolutely. And and like you said, Chris, what a great way to start the pay-per-view to really kick off the night, for the pay-per-view crowd. But then with a title change, I mean, that kind of stuff's not really heard of that often. And it definitely set the tone for the night.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of big time stars have an opinion of Johnny B. Bad. But, going back and watching some of his stuff during this time, a lot of times they had him in the opening match, and the very next year at Fall Brawl 95, they had him in the opening match with Flying Brian, and man, they win a time limit draw, double time limit draw, and man, you talk about a great match. Johnny B. Bad is definitely a great hand, I think, and I might be a little biased because seeing as how he was the very first pro wrestler I ever met. I was at a WCW wasn't doing so well. This was probably 92, and they had came to the Greensboro Coliseum, and I was sitting in my seat over by the babyface locker room, and I happened to look over, and he was just standing there. He didn't have his makeup on, and I'm like, that's Johnny B. Bad. So I walk over with my ticket stub, and that's the only thing I had to get his autograph. And of course, he autographed it for me, and I talked to him for a minute. But then fast forward, 20 some years later, now Mark Marrow, Johnny B. Bad, does these like he goes around to high schools and does motivational speaking to the children. And he actually came to my school about 4 years ago, and I walked over to him and I introduced myself, and I told him, I met you, and I told him the story, and he was so humble, that I remembered it, and I got to talk to him for a few more, just for a brief time, but a great guy. And so, have either one of you guys ever got to work with him?
I have not.
Chris, have you?
Yeah, say that again, Tony. I'm sorry.
Did you ever get a chance to work with Johnny B. Bad?
No, I never have. I never have. Other than, he always had great work in the ring. I think he was great for WCW during that time, also in the mid '90s. Just as an African American wrestler in the ring and just everything that he did, but he was just charismatic, and it just caught on to the crowd, whether he was baby face, whatever it was, it worked. And I actually kind of liked Johnny B. Bad during his career. I just thought it fit well within WCW.
Yeah, I agree. Now the next match was a barn burner. Kevin Sullivan with Dave Sullivan taking on Cactus Jack in a loser leaves WCW match. This match was giving you the idea of where Cactus Jack was going, but he wasn't quite there yet. But he was definitely on the road to becoming a major star. And I think, am I wrong, guys? After this match is when he left and went to ECW for a brief moment before he went to WWE. Is that right?
I think you're right. It's funny. Mick Foley actually came to, he's got a little comedy tour. He actually came here to Roanoke a few months ago, prior to all the COVID and everything. And he specifically talked about this match, and he said he never really talked about it anywhere else he goes. But just given the fact that where we were that night is only about 2 miles down the road from the Civic Center, he wanted to go ahead and talk about it. And he shared some stories about this match that I didn't even know. He said that he'd actually been in Germany working for Otto Vons.
Oh, wow.
And he'd caught several different planes. And he said that when he actually touched down in Roanoke, the pay-per-view had already started. And from the airport to the Civic Center, it's roughly about 10 minutes with no traffic or anything. But he said that he was getting dressed in the cab. He said that he actually got to the building while the first match was going on, so he and Kevin Sullivan didn't have a chance to talk about anything. They just went out there and did what all the greats did and walk and talk. He said the only thing that they did discuss was that the big bump that he took off the second turnbuckle down to the concrete floor. But the sad thing about this, and he's right, going back and looking at the match on video, WCW really dropped the ball with that. Since he was on his way out, they could have and they should have really had a camera going with him, because he actually jumped over the barrier and walked up through the crowd. So that should, and he had that crazy persona. That would have been a perfect time to actually have a camera with him. And ironically enough, he actually walked right by where I was sitting.
Oh, wow.
So here I am, a little 15-year-old patting Mick Foley on the chest. That was really cool. But, they could have done something with that to make it look better on TV, but they didn't. But nonetheless, I mean, just a classic Kevin Sullivan Mick Foley match.
I definitely enjoyed watching this match. The next match now, I have a different opinion of this one. Hacksaw Jim Duggan defeats Stunning Steve Austin for the WCW United States Heavyweight Title. In this match, if these numbers are correct, 35 seconds. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Well, the whole thing with that was Ricky Steamboat came out and relinquished the United States title, and I think it was a legit back injury. So they gave the belt to Austin, and then Hacksaw came and took it. But from a live perspective, it came across really weird. I know that fans were cheering, but it just didn't have a good flow to it. Even as a kid, you're like, this isn't right. This is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this was it. Ricky Steamboat's career was at an end at this point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I mean, when this happened, and I also think WCW. Okay, we're going to bring in Jim Duggan. Okay, WWF days. Everyone's going to know who he is with the big piece of wood coming out, and everything's going to be good. And so, and then for Steve Austin, shortly leaving WCW after this event, we don't need to see. We could have a whole week episode on that. What happens to him, but I mean, really an interesting match on the card with just a lot going on. Nick Bockwinkel's in the ring as well with Steamboat and Austin. It's interesting time for WCW and the U.S. title at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Now the next match is for the WCW World Tag Team titles. This match are the teams in this match. I know Drake has some opinions about one of the guys in here, and we'll touch on that in a couple of minutes. But one I think were the coolest names for a tag team: Pretty Paul Roma and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Pretty Wonderful. I love that team. I know Paul Roma doesn't have a very good impression in the wrestling business, but I like this team of Pretty Wonderful. I thought they had some good heat, and they are the World Tag Team Champions, and they actually, or I guess in this match they actually won the World Tag Team titles from Stars and Stripes, the Patriot, and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. Drake, take us back to this great tag team match. 12 minutes, 54 seconds. What was it like witnessing this match?
Anytime that you've got, let's back up. Paul Roma, here's the thing with him. He had a bad reputation. People always kind of scoffed at him, being the odd or the horseman that didn't fit in. And some people would say that he had a bad attitude. I've never met the guy, so I can't say. But what I can say is this: he wasn't a bad worker. He knew how to get heat. Put him with Paul Orndorff, who was a great worker. They both had fantastic bodies at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a recipe for a win right there. And then you put them across the ring from the Patriot, who's I remember watching as the Trooper in the AWA, for Vern Gagne, and then Marcus Alexander Bagwell, who, while he'd been in the wrestling business for a little while, working down in Texas as a handsome stranger for Global Wrestling Federation, he still hadn't come into his own yet, and he didn't until he took on the Buff Bagwell persona. But still, you've got four guys in there that are very capable and good workers, and it was a solid tag team match. It certainly wasn't a 5-star match, but it was good. Yeah,
it definitely was. Chris, what are your thoughts on this tag match?
I mean, it's it's an interesting match. You got four wrestlers in there. I mean, me, Tony, growing up in Connecticut, the old WWF days, Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, was huge in the WWF run. Yeah. So him in WCW at this point, a veteran in the ring, with a Paul Roma who, both in WWF, WCW, they had good bodies, just like Drake said. And, the Patriot and Buff Bagwell, it's appealing to the fans, and it's a tag match. I'm not saying it's a filler match in the show, but it is kind of smack dab also right in the middle. But again, I think it's good entertainment, and I think it's a good way to keep the fans engaged. And hey, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Deep in my heart, I was always a Paul Orndorff kind of fan.
Oh yeah,
even when he was in the WWF days. He was kind of like the guy you just love to hate all the time, and he always kind of had that persona about him, both in and out of the ring.
One of the things I liked the best about Paul Orndorff back in those days was how he used to kiss his biceps.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was really cool. How he did that. Mm-hmm. Now going on to this next match. It was I think they billed this the number one contender match. Big Van Vader, Sting, and the Guardian Angel in a triangle match. This match went 30 minutes 22 seconds. Kind of crazy. Drake, take us back to this one.
I'd like to be able to say good things about the match from my perspective, because I was always a Sting fan growing up. Vader was a legend. Ray Traylor was a legend as well. But at the same time, I think it was the format of the match. It didn't do anything for me. If I remember correctly, and I'll admit I didn't go back and watch it before the show, but I want to say that they ended up doing like a sudden death finish. And to me, it felt like the match just went on way too long. It didn't keep me entertained.
Yeah, me neither. And the finish was kind of weird. But it's kind of a throwaway match, really. But it definitely got us ready for the main event. And this one was really exciting because it had a lot of real feelings in there. Because during this time, I think Dusty and Dustin were kind of estranged. I think maybe they hadn't talked for a while, and then they got back together. And when Dusty cut that promo prior to this War Games, and he came out and asked Dustin, don't look for nobody, let me be your partner. And when Dusty asked Dustin to just seal it with a kiss and give me a hug, I think that was just true words from a dad to his son, who maybe at the time wasn't talking or hadn't been talking, and had a little falling out over something. I think was probably Dustin's ex-wife, but talk about pulling on your heartstrings and looking back and just making you feel like Dusty is just Dusty. There's nobody has charisma the way Dusty Rhodes does or did. Dusty was not in the greatest shape. He didn't look like a wrestler, but man, he could put people in the seats.
Yeah, he could, and really, that's the name of the game. I mean, Chris, you ran shows for many years, so the name of the game. Put a butt every 18 inches.
Right.
If you've got somebody that can do that, then you can make money with them, and you want them on your show. And you're right, Tony. Dusty wasn't in great shape. I mean, he was never in great shape, but man, he had the stamina. He could go, and he could. I mean, up until the day he took his last breath, he was able to have the people eat out of his hands with just the words that he said. Yeah,
and his mannerisms on television, and of course. Yep. My all-time favorite Dusty Rhodes promo was the Hard Times, because that promo was just so real. And man, and I was telling Chris this a couple weeks ago. Even going back and watching the Rhea plays on the network and hearing that, I'm gonna go buy a ticket. But I want to buy a ticket and go see Dusty, because it's still. When I watch it, I'm like, it still gives me goosebumps, man. Dusty was like, man, there'll never be another one like Dusty that could, just the way he talked just made you believe what everything he said he did.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting War Games match. As I kind of look at the lineup of this match, I kind of look at Double A, Arn Anderson, and like what's going through his head. I'm in this match with Bunkhouse Buck, Rob Parker, Terry Funk, which is fine. Terry, very respectful in the business. Ming's on the outside, like where are the horsemen?
Yeah,
yeah.
Kind of like, it's not like, what the heck? I've been all these historic War Games and God knows what else all the way down the line, and now I'm in this thing in 1994. So I'm just kind of wanting to go through Double A's mind. And I still don't know how Rob Parker really was involved in this match with Ming on the outside. You think Ming would have been in the ring and Rob Parker would have been on the outside, but whatever the storyline was at that particular juncture, but it's kind of like what's going through Double A's mind, just working with these other guys in this match.
Well,
knowing him and the Dream are going to tangle before it's over with.
Yeah, well, I think the storyline there, Chris, was they were trying to keep Ming really, really, really strong. So instead of putting him in the match to lose, they left him outside the ring to
Right.
keep his character. But fans, if you get a chance, go back and listen to one of the older episodes of the Binge Buster Show, and I actually had Colonel Robert Parker on the show, and he told a story about this particular match, and if you go back and look at the match, Dusty Rhodes on one of the Best of the War Games DVD where he's talking, he talks about this match. And he says that Colonel Robert Parker suffered diarrhea during this match.
I was just going to ask if he talks about a crappy situation.
Yes, he does. And on my on the podcast when he was on the show, he told it. But Colonel Robert told a little different than what Dusty what Dusty tells on the DVD. But Colonel Robert says that he was on the outside of the ring and he had sat down, and I guess someone had spilled some soda or something on the ground, and it was dirty, and he sat down on his white pants, and it looked brown. So he said he heard some Mark at ringside go, "Hey, I think he shit his pants." So he played off of it. But I also heard a story that if you go back and watch the match, Dusty's got for the finish, Dusty has Colonel Robert in the figure 4, and the Nasty Boys are dropping some pretty stiff elbows. So I wouldn't, I don't know, but the funny thing is, Colonel Robert told me, he said he was sitting there and he said Ming took that job really seriously. Like Ming didn't, and he said he was always trying to get Ming to crack. And so he said at one particular time in this pay-per-view, Ming is like squatted down and checking on him, and he said, "I'm trying to make Ming laugh," and I said, "Ming, I shit my pants," and he said Ming still wouldn't crack. He tried his best to make him crack, but he wouldn't do it. He said, Ming took that job way too serious.
Wow, that's a great story. That is unreal. But hey, a great match. Great War Games. Probably not the best War Games we've ever seen, but what a solid side. Even the Nasty Boys at that time were big time over.
Oh, yes.
As well. So a definite formidable tag team with Dusty and Dustin as well, just from the Nasty Boys angle. So I think overall, 1994 was an interesting year for pro wrestling. A lot of transition was going on. A lot of, guys were jumping ship here and there. And I think, things were just about to explode a couple of years later within the professional wrestling scene. And it was just an interesting time just overall for the couple of big players in the game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, thank you for breaking this down for us. I mean, it was a fun pay-per-view. Drake is the only one in the room that got to actually witness everything, in live and in living color. And I'm envious of you that you got to do that and I didn't. But man, fun times. And
I do have one question for Drake.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. That Roanoke Civic Center, and I've been in there once or twice. there's not a bad seat in the house. I don't think in that place, in that building. It's. I don't think you were sitting on the floor up top. I think you're kind of right there. It just seems like a nice, intimate place to have an event such as this, or just professional wrestling in general.
Yeah, it's not a bad venue. You know, as time has gone on, and as we'll say that the sets have gotten bigger, like with WWE and their Monday Night Raw sets, you know, that does block off a little bit of viewing space. But once you get away from that, no, there's not a bad seat in the facility to be able to actually sit back and watch what's going on.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Really cool.
I mean, yeah.
Very good.
Now, for concerts, the acoustics suck, but
they do?
That's neither here nor there.
Oh, that's too bad.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's too bad. All right, fans, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it is going to be the main event of the Binge Buster Show, as we are going to go in depth, find out about the wrestling career of Drake Tungsten, find out some of his favorite things that he got to do over the years, maybe some funny stories in between, and he still has got something to blow Chris Plano away, and all that's coming up next.
Oh my God!
All that and much more coming up next on the Binge Buster Show. Want to get your event or business advertised around the world? Then let the Binge Buster Show advertise for you. We offer a weekly show that is broadcast over all major podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and much more. We offer 5 levels of advertising to fit any budget. So don't hesitate. Let the Binge Buster Show work for you. For information, contact us on our Facebook page at The Binge Buster Show. We look forward to helping you and your business grow.
Strap yourself in, because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
All right, fans, welcome back to the Binge Buster Show, and now we are going to be breaking it down. I'm excited about this. Our guest this week is, again, we're joined by former NWA North American Tag Team Champion and former AIWF World Tag Team Champion. Drake Tungsten is in the house. We just got through breaking down Fall Brawl 94, and now we're going to break down Drake Tungsten. So Drake, again, welcome to the Binge Buster Show. Thank you for joining us this week. Chris and I are excited, and I know like I said prior to the show, as we went on the air, you and I have been friends. We've been brothers, not friends. We've been brothers for a very, very long time. We first met at Boogie's wrestling camp, and it was like an instant friendship. And then it seems like after that, our paths always crossed, and then we finally just realized, hey man, we are close, and it's been that way for I can't even tell you how many years. It's always been a pleasure to work with you, to talk to you, to be hang out with you, and thank you for that. And but tell us how well, before we get into that, several weeks ago when I first talked to you about coming on the show, and your words to me was, now Chris Plano is your co-host now. And I said, yeah. And he said, oh great, I can't wait to tell Chris this story. So hit Chris with a little bit of trivia, the story, tell him, and let's see if you don't blow Chris away.
All right, so I'll work up to it, because there's a very, Chris ended up playing a very important role in my breaking into the wrestling business. So let's kind of take it back a little bit. Now, I'm not going to bore you all with I used to watch wrestling as a kid all the time, because I did. I mean, every kid did. Every one of us that's in the wrestling business, more than likely, we probably watched TV, watched wrestling as a kid. I'm not going to bore you with that. Who cares? So let's go to about 1997, the summer of 1997. I was working for a minor league baseball team here in the area called the Salem Avalanche. And they had agreed, or they'd had a local promotion come do a show prior to one of their games in the parking lot of their front office. So that was actually my very first time touching a wrestling ring. I went there because I wanted to kind of help out. I wanted to be part of it. So I got there and I helped them set the ring up, and they ended up being a ring announcer that night. Jimmy Knight was on the show, and he came out and gave me the big boogie kiss. I had no idea it was coming. It's actually on one of his VHS tapes, and if you watch it, the reaction that you get from me is real. Because I had no clue that the boogie kiss was coming. Scared the hell out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. You got some, however year old man he was, the big beard, putting his lips near you. You're going to wonder what in the world you're getting yourself into. So I want to say maybe the next year or the year after that, Chris was doing ball field shows for with his New Dimension Wrestling. Mm-hmm. And Tony, I don't know if you ever saw any of these or not, but the way that they did them in Salem was they would put the ring together over off the field, and then after the game, they would use 2 forklift the ring out, set it down there on home plate. That's where I met Chris the very first time. I was working for the team, and they actually used me as a kind of a go-to person to say, hey, tell the next match that they're up. Because of all that, I got to know and follow New Dimension Wrestling. I followed them on Facebook, not Facebook, but the internet, a little while, and then ended up meeting a local wrestler by the name of Brute Shooter. You remember him, Chris?
Yes, I do.
Ended up meeting him, and went to one of your shows in Lynchburg, Virginia. I think you had the Hardy Boys there. They didn't wrestle there that night. And then let's fast forward a little bit more. I would have been a sophomore in college at Bluefield College then. I was part of this group called the Student Union Board, and I wanted to do a fundraiser. So Tony actually reached out to Chris and booked New Dimension Wrestling to come do a fundraiser at the Bluefield Auditorium, which is a historic building there in town. Crockett ran the building, and they even ran it under the WCW banner. So Chris came in and brought New Dimension Wrestling. Of course, since I was the one that was putting the event on, I had to help out. So, of course, I did all that. Ended up working security for you that night. And you didn't really do anything, just wore the NDW security shirt, which, by the way, I still have, and I just saw it the other day.
That is classic. Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay.
Yellow with the black letters. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And then 2 months later, you came back and you ran the building again. I wasn't even involved in wrestling. I hadn't begun training or anything, but I actually took my very first bump in the ring that night from Rick Link. And now I don't know if you remember, but there was some sort of an angle going on with Ricky Nelson and Super Mario, and I think Boogie and Link was involved. I don't remember all the specifics, but I remember that they gave Super Mario's son a pile driver.
Right. Okay. My God. Okay. I'm having a flashback here now.
Yeah,
Super Mario, Tony, Super Mario. We're having a flashback now.
I'm telling you.
Okay. I remember before the show, you and Rick Link came up to me and you asked me, "Do you want to get involved tonight?" So I'm not trained. I've never done any of this. You said, "Well, this is what we'll do," and you kind of worked out a spot with me where after little Claudio got the pile driver, I was going to be up in the ring, and Link was going to give me a big forearm smash to the back, and so he did. I took the big forearm to the back, ended up rolling outside, just kind of selling there on the floor, and then I remember Link. After it was all over with, he came out, looked at me, kind of gave me a little wink, make sure I was all right, threw one more boot to me, and then went to the back. That was my official intro into the pro wrestling world.
That is wow. Okay, yes, I remember that. And let me tell you, Tony Benj knows Rick Link. Not many guys with no experience would even attempt to do that with Rick Link, because God knows what's going to happen with him at any moment in and out of the ring.
Well, maybe I was stupid. I don't know, but to me, I was like, that was really cool. But so we'll fast forward from there. I end up getting my training in at Jimmy Valiant School in Shawsville. And then I had my first match on December 4th of 1999, and here I am still going at it some today.
That is an incredible story, and it tickles me pink to hear that. I can't even respond to this, but just to know that, whether I directly or indirectly had an impact on you getting into the business. And, back then I was, a 20-something-year-old, individual running an independent wrestling promotion. And, the day of the show was always crazy. We're trying to do a lot of different things at a lot of different times. And as Tony, as on the road doing these, whether it was a fair show, a baseball show, or whatever we were doing, it's always a lot of stuff going on. And, we move from town to town, but that is so great to hear and inspirational that, and knowing that Link and Boogie and Mario, we're all in on the angle, and Link kind of knows, where things are in the business back then as well. It's just great to hear that. And to see you now some 20-something years later, still doing it strong. It tickles me pink to know that you were a part of something that I thought was really special at New Dimension Wrestling back in the mid to late 90s and into early 2000s.
Oh, I agree. And what you had going was something that was great. I actually attended my very first New Dimension show that I can remember. And again, this is after the ball field and everything. So I know I'm jumping back and forth, but you ran a show at the Brushfork Armory.
Yes.
And it wasn't your Thanksgiving show. It was like the one after that. But that's actually where I met one of the referees, Eric Foster.
Yes.
Who worked for you. Someone was also working for Joe Brody, who was running at the AWA up in that area as well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
You're bringing back some areas. I mean, I love, going up to Salem, Virginia was so special to go up there. And even up to when we went up to Roanoke and in Bluefield, West Virginia, you're talking about the Brushfork Armory and the Bluefield Auditorium. I mean, those were just hot areas. And I'm going to tell you, and Tony's going to hear this too. You know who inspired me to go up there?
Who?
Was Jimmy Valiant.
Really?
Jimmy Valiant said, he tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "Kid, you got something going on here. You need to go up to Bluefield, West Virginia, and run the Brushfork Armory." He said, "You bring Ricky and Robert in, me, Pez Watley, a couple of the guys. It'll be and Tony, we went there. It was out of control."
Wow.
He knew. I mean, he goes, "I'm telling you, kid, you got to go." You go, and I think Boogie, I want to say, saw something a little bit in me. He saw a lot of energy. I think he saw a lot of energy in me and a lot of excitement and that kind of stuff. But, I really, if it wasn't for Jimmy Valiant to push me to go into West Virginia and up to War, West Virginia, and a couple up to Charleston and a couple other areas, that would have been uncharted territory. And I was taking a risk going up there. I mean, I was living in Greensboro. I mean, here I am promoting shows up in Charleston, West Virginia, 5-6 hours away. But it worked at the end of the day. In Princeton, West Virginia, another hot town outside of Bluefield as well. And it was like, this is great. And it was a totally different crowd up there. They were big time into it. And there's different crowds in all markets. But, man, I'm going to tell you, those fans in Virginia, West Virginia, even over towards Kentucky over there, they're passionate, man. They love their wrestling. And when it comes to their town, they're going to go because back then, that's all it was, man. When wrestling came to town, that's what it was. And it was good stuff on Friday and Saturday nights.
Yep.
Now, Chris, I have to ask this question. Being that you were running in West Virginia, I know you had to have booked Scotty McKeever.
I believe. I mean, I don't know. Did I?
Oh, I don't know. I'm asking.
I don't know.
Scotty was like the most popular West Virginia wrestler ever on the independent circuit, I believe.
Man, I don't know, but I will say this, man. I did book this kid up in Bluefield, Princeton, Bam Bam Roger Ham.
Roger Ham, yep.
You remember Roger Ham?
I do.
That kid brought some people in, man. I mean, he put me on the opening match. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Tony and Drake, I mean, you just go to some of these cities. When I did shows in Charleston, you pass the Charleston Civic Center. You know, you go to Bluefield. When I was at that Bluefield Armory, that first show I did at the Bluefield Armory, this is no lie. The guy that was running the building, he goes, "You're running a show here in the Bluefield Armory tonight. The NWA used to come here."
Wow.
With Ric Flair. And Boogie's in the back. And it was like, this is it. This is crazy stuff going on here. I mean, it was, and even Ricky Morton was in the back. He goes, we're gonna burn it down tonight, baby. Oh man, here we go. And some of those guys, remember, that was the locker room they were in with Jim Crockett Promotions.
And Tony, the armory that we're talking about, it's not like your typical North Carolina armory.
Oh no,
it's just one level. I mean, this is a large building. It's got, I mean, the floor is huge, and then there's bleachers. You know, they're on the floor level, and then it's even got an upstairs balcony as well.
Oh wow!
With bleachers all the way around that too.
That's really I think it easily held 4,000 with no problem at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, this is like nothing against Thomasville or Burlington or other armories around North Carolina, but this thing was, I mean, you were in some places where, you know, the NWA was hitting in the mid to late 80s.
Yeah, I mean, they would do their TV tapings from there and pack the place out.
Wow. That's amazing. I hate I missed that time.
So, great stuff. Man, Tommy, that's a great story, man. You totally blew me away, but you rattled my brain. You rattled my head.
I knew it. Told you. I told you, Drake.
I remember that now. And you know, hey, Rick Link, you know, I want to say something about Rick if I can, Tony, as well.
Yes, please.
You know, Rick was really, you know, my right-hand guy. You know, he really was. You know, Rick was always a guy that you either loved Rick or you hated him, and there was kind of nowhere in between. There really wasn't with him, and I think Tony would agree with me as well. But, you know, he was always there for me, but I think Rick always did what was best for the business, whether it was for me or if I asked him for a favor or whatever it was, or maybe even saying, hey, this guy's trying to get into the business, you know, give him a little, you know, part of the show. And I just think that's the way it was back then. But I think at the end of the day, we were always there to entertain the fans and the fans that came to your baseball games back then.
Yeah.
That's what we were there for, because my goal was, we want to come back, not just tonight. We want to know when we're coming back next.
Yeah.
So we always try to impress, you know, each and every night.
And, you know, Chris, talking about Rick Link, in a business that everyone, let's be honest here, in a business where most everybody in this business is the most selfish person that you can meet, Rick Link is probably the most selfless person that you'll ever meet. Kind of like what you said, when it comes to a show, he doesn't do what's best for him. He does what's best for the show. What's going to make these people want to come back.
Absolutely, because I always tell Rick that we have to get back here, whether it's the next month, 2 months, maybe it's next year. This could be a baseball game we only play once a year and we come back next year. You know, this could be a multiple-year deal. I don't know what it is, but we got to put our best foot forward every night, and no matter what it is, everyone has to leave happy because we got to come back. This isn't, you know, we're not on, you know, national television here, you know, but we got to come back. But we also have to put a good product in place at the same time, and that's always what I tried to do, was leave everyone happy and say, hey, we saw some good wrestling matches tonight, and we might want to see some more later on when they come back to town.
Yeah, for sure. Now, talking about tag team wrestling, I got to bring this up, because if I don't bring this up, I'm going to be sad. So with Drake being a former NWA North American Tag Team Champion, AIWF Tag Team Champion, Drake has been a tag team specialist. And one of his first, and it may have been his first partner, but the one I met first. I always loved working with this guy. Super nice guy. Hubie Johnson. Drake, he and Drake were a tag team known as UNOD, right, Drake?
Yep, United Nations of Devastation.
Yeah. Now, Chris, I gotta tell you some funny. Now, at this point, guys, we're gonna get into a little backstage antics, some fun stuff. So here we go. You're gonna love this. So, like I said earlier, I met Drake at Boogie's Wrestling Camp, and we talked briefly, and then one of my good friends, Curtis Berry, was running this little building outside the flea market in Thomasville, North Carolina, and me and another guy at the time, his name was now he goes by Leo Riker, super great guy, very dedicated, but at the time he was young. And at that time, he was known as Trent Wild. So he's Trent, I'm Tony. We're the tag team known as TNT. Okay, Chris. So Trent and I are the current tag team champions for Curtis Perry's wrestling company there in Thomasville, right? So we're like the top heels. No matter what we do, people hate us, but like they like to hate us because, I'm comical, right? So Curtis tells me, hey, and I'm old school, so he tells me one day, hey, I got this team coming in and they're really cool. They're called UNOD. Well, at the time I didn't know that was Tommy's team, because back then the internet wasn't out there, so unless you was on the show, you didn't know who these people were, or at least I didn't. So anyway, he brings in UNOD, and he's like, yeah, he tells me, get to the building a little early so you can meet the guys, and so we're gonna do like a 4-week program. We're gonna have them come out, and you guys have a match, and they'll get disqualified, and we'll do this for like 3 matches, and then we'll have you guys drop the belts to them. I said, okay, whatever you need me to do. I get there and I see Drake, and I'm like, hey, brother. And we knew each other. So we knew right then it was going to be good. But here's the crazy thing. Once we came out, like they came out first. And now the week before, me and Trent beat up some baby faces, and some guy pulled a knife on me and he's ready to kill me, right? So I had heat. The very next week, They bring in UNOD. Now during this time we're getting ready to go to war, or maybe we were already in war, because this was right after 9/11. But they come out, but they were out there, and when our music hit and we came through the curtain, the place went crazy. But they weren't booing us; they were cheering us. And Drake and Hubie got us over because they had so much heat on them, because they were portraying these characters from different countries, and those rednecks there in Thomasville were all immediately they were on us. And I remember the great ring announcer Randy Hedrick. He used to have this sign at ringside about this. I think it was a restaurant, right, Drake? About I'm over, damn it. I'm over, damn it. And I remember, I remember coming out there, getting the microphone. I cut a promo, and I said, here's the crazy thing. I said, we out here last week, you guys boo us. I said, this week we come out and you cheer us. I said, that tells me one thing. We're over, damn it. And the place went crazy. And at the time, Chris, what is that country singer? He had just came out with that song about 9/11, the part where he says, Toby Keith, yeah. The part where it says, we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. And I don't know, for whatever reason, man, it just hit me to say that. And I told Trent, I said, since we're over, I said, let's take Toby Keith's advice. Let's go ahead and put a boot in these guys' asses. And man, when I said that, we hit the ring, and we just took off. And that feud was just, it was fun, man. It was so easy. But Drake and Hubie got us over so much. No matter what we did, we couldn't be heels anymore.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, and the thing about it was that wasn't even the promoter's plan. Like, his plan was to keep us heels and keep them heels, and we just have like a heel feud. But we couldn't. The people loved us too much because of all the heat that Drake and Hubie had. But man, what a fun time that was.
Definitely. Those were the good old days. I'll tell you a little story about Trent real quick. And it actually happened in that same building. I don't know if it was the same match or not, but we were talking out the match, and we were, working out different spots and everything. And he was still at that stage where you could mess with him, throw him off his game. Well, I had talked out a spot with him. I don't even remember what it was, but anyway, I changed the spot in the middle of the match, although I didn't tell him that I was changing the spot. I just did something completely different. So I think he does a drop down or something, and I just immediately start laying the boots to him, and I pick him up and I go to do something, and then it's just loud as can be, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on air or not. Yeah, so censor me if you need to. But he goes, "Ha ha, motherfucker." Just loud as can be.
Yeah, that's Trent, man. Trent he's a trip. He, like I said, he goes by a different name now, but to me, man, he's always, every time I see him, I call him Trent. I don't call him anything else, because he's gonna always be Trent to me. But man, that was some fun times, and Chris, during this time is when a lot of backstage antics would happen, and I don't know if Drake remembers this. I hope you don't. But do you remember the time that you guys were in the back? Again, this is in Thomasville. By this time, we'd already dropped the belts to you guys. You guys were like feuding with somebody else. You guys might have been feuding with I don't remember now who it was, but back then you guys carried flags to the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris, they're getting ready for their match, and
right.
And of course I back then I was a locker room prankster. If I could find somebody to pull a prank on, I was going to do it. And so they're getting ready to go to the ring, and I go steal their flags. And you remember that, Tommy? Tommy couldn't find his flag. He's like, all right, some asshole's got my flag, and it was behind, and I stuck it over there behind what was that guy's name? Paco Loco. and Tommy goes over and cusses him out. Tommy, Drake and Hubie was over there yelling at Paco for taking their flag, but it wasn't Paco, it was me. I just moved her flags.
Our music's playing. Where's the flags? We got to hit.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, we got to hit the curtain there.
I was always
only terrific Tony. Terrific Tony.
I was always pulling some pranks. There's just so much you can do, and there was another time there was a guy in the locker room who's his, and I'm not I probably shouldn't tell this story, but it's just too funny. So we're over there, and the guy was like, he had this gimmick. He was trying to do a WWE gimmick, and Drake, you probably remember this guy. But he was like a fisherman. He carried an oar to the ring. Jack Mack, was that his name?
Jack Mack, yeah.
Jack Mack.
I don't remember much about him, and I think there's a reason. But
yeah, there's definitely a reason. But Chris, he was kind of cross-eyed. Mm-hmm. So one night, me and Tommy and Matt Houston and Brad was over there talking, and we're talking about the state of WCW back then, or whatever it was. So we were talking about, and Brad walks up and says to us and says, and Jack was like over across the room looking at us. And Brad ends up saying, guys, you know what the cool thing about Jack Mack is? And Matt Houston goes, what? He goes, no matter where he sits in this room, he's looking at us. And we all lost it. You remember that? Jack?
Yes, I do. Excuse me.
But that guy was, he was, his heart was there, but his body and mind was not, to be a wrestler.
No.
But he definitely had the heart, but he lacked a lot of the talent, I guess. But yeah, that was pretty funny. Now, I'll quit picking on people now. Now we'll try to get into some serious stuff. Now,
I'll pick on him.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know, and Chris, you may not know this, but Drake has got a huge collection of some really cool wrestling memorabilia. I remember the first thing that Drake ever showed me, and I went crazy over, that he had was he had one of the NWA World Tag Team belts, the silver with the gold eagles. Mm-hmm. And nice. Man, I love that belt, Chris. That was my favorite belt. And then he also had one of the Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles. He had one of those, and it was actually made by Reggie Parks, correct?
Yep, it was.
Yep, beautiful belts.
Wow.
But over the years, Drake has had some really, really, really cool memorabilia. So of all the stuff you ever had, and I don't know if you want to say this on air, if you can, great. If you can't, I understand. But what do you think is the most the coolest, most sought after piece of memorabilia that you've had or have at this time?
Wow. Oh. At one point in time, I would have said Ric Flair's Black Scorpion tights from Starrcade 1990.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But, yeah, I had those. Had them for several years. Ended up selling them. My wants for my collection change over the years. So at one point in time, I was getting pretty much anything I could. If I saw it was ring worn, I'm going to grab it.
Yep. Because
there's only so much ring worn stuff out there. But then I've realized that that's not the most important stuff to me. So a lot of my ring worn stuff, as far as like tights and full outfits and everything, that's kind of been, it's been whittled away to things to things from people that mean something to me. Like, you gave me a pair of your tights and one of your shirts. A good friend of ours, Jimmy Love, I've got one of his singlets. I've got 3 pair of Boogie's striped tights. Excuse me again. Sorry, guys. I'm fighting a cough here. So most of the things that I've got now have some sort of meaning to me. Not everything. I think at this point in time, I'd say my biggest, my most sought after piece, and I just got this last week, is a full ring worn Jushin Thunder Liger outfit.
Wow!
With the mask,
that's awesome.
Top tights, yeah.
That's awesome.
And it definitely shows some wear and tear on it. But it's and the mask is autographed too, which makes it even better. But I'd say as far as like gear wise, that's probably it. You mentioned the belts I've got. The NWA World Tag belt I'm now on my 3rd belt of that. I had one once before and sold it. Bought another one, sold it. Bought this one. I'm keeping it. I'm not going to sell this one. No, it's too hard to find. But I totaled it up the other day. I've got 19 high quality belts, with the nice professional leather, thick plates.
Wow.
Yeah, acid etching, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
very
some
nice,
really cool stuff. Now, Chris, one time, Drake had something I really wanted so bad, but it was never for sale. But he had a Terry Taylor jacket, and this was back when Terry and you know what? I never even knew that Terry even used this gimmick until I saw this jacket. But at one point when Terry Taylor was in the WWF, he went by the name Terrific Terry Taylor, and so Drake had this beautiful ring jacket made by Olivia Walker, the same lady that made all of Ric Flair's robes. So this thing was beautiful. It was like, what was it? Was it like burgundy or red or something like that?
Yeah, it was like a red burgundy velvet.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful jacket. And I told him, I said, man, I got to get that jacket. But it I think now that the jacket is actually with who of who really would appreciate it more than me. So that's great. But man, I tell you, and a lot of times, Chris, whenever Drake is thinking of getting something, he actually goes through he has a personal what do you call him?
What's your title? Your business, my personal business consultant, or something like that.
Yeah. He
there you go.
All right. Goes through a personal business consultant that says, "Hey, what would you do?" And I'm like, but I think that's really cool. But yeah, man, Drake's got a huge collection of some really cool wrestling memorabilia, and I always love seeing the pictures and stuff like that whenever he posted on social media.
But you know what I love is that, Drake, you still have the old NDW wrestling security shirt. That's
that thing is priceless.
I know we're talking about world titles and suits and stuff here, but that tickles me pink that you said that earlier.
Yeah, I can guarantee you now I wouldn't be able to fit into it, but I still got it.
Still got it.
That's all right. It's classic.
So Drake, you've been in wrestling business now a long time. What would you consider like one of your favorite all-time matches? I mean, I know that's probably hard because you probably got a million of them that you can't really like me. I have a lot of matches that I can't sit and tell you this is my absolute favorite. But what's some matches that kind of stand out to you?
Well, you're putting me on the spot here. I think one of the matches, and I proudly show this match off to people, it was myself and Matt Houston when we were going by the name Notorious against they went by the Star City Rollers. It was Jimmy Jannetty, a former ECW original from the old Eastern Championship Wrestling, and Jody Osborne. It was there in Thomasville. Actually, I think you and I worked earlier that night, if I'm right, Tony.
Yep, we did.
Under a hood.
Yep, sure did.
And we probably went 30 minutes in that tag match, and we didn't call a single thing in the back. The only thing other than the finish.
Yeah. Everything
else was on the fly. The only thing that I may have said is to Jannetty, I told him if I go for a pile driver on the outside, block 2 and backdrop me. I remember taking a huge backdrop on the floor and with no padding, and that did not feel good at all.
No.
Yeah, I regretted that one. That's probably one of my favorite matches that I'll show to people. It wasn't a 5-star match, but the night that Bad News Johnson, or QB as you were calling him, the night that he and I won the NWA North American Tag Team titles, that actually happened here in Roanoke.
Oh, nice.
And that was a title switch. That was a title switch that we didn't know was going to happen. They surprised us with it, like as I've got it was Chris Escobar, as I've got him rolled up for the pin, as the referee's coming down. After he hits one, he goes, "You're over, champ." And the referee was counting so fast by the time that I could say what, he'd already hit 3.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
I had no clue. Which, I mean, it's all the work. I mean, I hate to expose the business, but it's already exposed. I mean, everybody knows that it's all predetermined and everything. But there's just certain moments, in your career that'll kind of get you a little bit more than others. And
yeah,
and that one was really special too, because my parents, they've never really been huge fans of me wrestling. Always afraid that I would get hurt, but they were all sitting front row that night, so that was really cool.
Oh yeah, I can relate to that.
To have that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what I was saying, as far as how that night made you feel, I had something similar to that happen to me one time. My parents were like yours. Now my dad came to a few of my matches, but my mom, never. And in the history of the 20-some years that I've been a wrestler, my mom has only came to see me wrestle one match. But I wanted to make sure she was at this match because this was very important to me. She was there the night that I got to team up with Ricky Morton to take on Loverboy Dennis of the Midnight Express and George South. And
nice.
And when I was in there, I said, no matter what I do after tonight, nothing else is going to matter. Nothing else is going to beat this moment, because in this moment, both my parents were in the building watching me wrestle, but not only wrestle, but I was involved in the match of two of the tag teams that really made me want to be a wrestler as a kid growing up. It don't get much better than that. So I can definitely, relate to how you felt on that one, Drake.
Yeah, it's always awesome when you've got, when you're able to live out your dream in front of your loved ones, friends, family, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. So what are there any other matches that stand out in your mind as well?
Excuse me again. I hate to say it, but I mean, I've forgotten so many matches. I mean, over the years, they just all kind of run together.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you another highlight, and I'm not going to be one of these people that says that I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a former WWE person, because I'm not. But anybody that gets in the business, they almost everybody, they want to be involved in with WWE in some fashion. They want to say that they received a paycheck from WWE. 2006 September, October, somewhere in there, I don't remember. August, maybe it was end of August. But I was fortunate enough to be booked for Monday Night Raw, and I ended up just being an extra, but it still, I made it there. I was asked to be there. I got a paycheck from there.
Right.
It was a one-time only thing, and and I don't brag about it. And I'm certainly not trying to come across that way now, but that's, to me, that kind of said, hey, I've been somewhere where not a lot of people get to go.
For sure.
So I was happy, and I could have hung up the boots after that if I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was another big highlight for me.
Well, I was sitting here just thinking this. A lot of people are successful, and a lot of people that are successful, and you don't really even know it. I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about right now is our buddy on the other line here, Chris Plano. Man, think about when he was running NDW Strong. Look at how many people came from NDW that become major stars on WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It was, Tony, North Carolina, I want to say from 95 to 98, 99, it was just a breeding ground for, both WWF and WCW back then, and even ECW to an extent. But, Matt and Jeff, the Hardy Boys, you had, Amy Dumas, who became Lita, you had, Shane Helms, Shannon Moore, Joey Abs. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, it's just, there was so much talent coming out of here. It was great. I mean, to work with some of those guys, it was just like, wow. I mean, the next thing you know, they're onto the main stage, and hey, that's what it's all about. Working your way up the ranks, and they had a shot, and they came at a time where high flying was being accepted into wrestling, and all this other kind of stuff versus just the mat wrestling. And it was just a great time for the independent wrestling scene around here, and for some of those guys that made it to the national scene, they made some very, very good money, and to this day they're still making good money, some of them.
Yep.
There's a few still out there, Matt and Jeff specifically, the Hardy Boys, but hey, they're still making money. They're still cashing a check, and their name's out there, and that's really what it's all about. We're trying just to get, we're chasing this dream. A lot of people chase the dream. Only so many people get there, and I think Tommy told a story tonight of, he made it there. I think he made it there, and I think he's still living it as well. And boy, what a great 21 or 22-year run you've had at this professionally, and even prior to that. It's a great story to say that you were a part of something in 2006. Not many people can say that at all.
No, and so I mean, it was all a blur the way it all happened, and I'll admit when I got my paycheck, I made a copy of it and I've saved it, and it's hanging on my wall downstairs.
Oh yeah, I've done the same thing.
By all means, I'm going to get that money, but I want something to remember that. And what was funny is my tag team partner, Bad News, he went with me that night to Monday Night Raw, and we got in the car to come home, and he says, "I got something for you." I'm like, "What?" And he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out a script that they used that night, and I mean, and it's got the promos pretty much verbatim on there, the time cues,
beautiful,
the agent, for this segment, all that stuff. I mean, and he was like, "I thought you might want that," and he just found it laying around and he just grabbed it up before anybody had a chance to see it.
That's awesome. Yeah,
and actually that segment that I was on ended up making it on one of the WWE DVDs that was released, so that was even cooler. Of course, I'm not getting any royalties on it, but whatever.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I love hearing stuff like that. So before we close the podcast, Drake, do you have any like funny road stories you want to share with the people?
Road stories that I can tell and not get in trouble.
Yeah, those two.
I've got one that's a dumb story, and I'm not advocating it, and I would never. I mean, I'm so against it nowadays. But again, you're young, you're dumb, you don't think about things.
Right.
We were traveling down from Roanoke to do a show for Nightstick Eddie Brown down in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we started when we were on the road all the time. We would crack open a bottle here and there, while traveling.
Right.
Always after, often before. So we started cracking open the booze around Boone's Mill, which is only about 15 minutes outside of Roanoke. So we had a little over a 3-hour drive. I was drinking the beer, and then Bad News was drinking Everclear. So by the time we got there to the building in Fayetteville, I'd gone through about a half a case of beer. And I've realized that I've got all these beer cans and I don't know what to do with them. But the building was right beside a used car lot, so we figured out how to slide the zipper open on a Geo tracker because it's got the rag top.
Right.
We all saw the beer cans in there and then zipped it closed again. not a smart thing to do by any means. And now that I'm older and have kids, I don't do that kind of stupid stuff anymore. But that's that's one that I'll share on there. I'll share others off there.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. We've hey Chris, off air, Drake and I have shared some stories, and
I'm sure you.
and Chris, the scary thing is our stories are a lot similar. It's just the participants are different.
Just different background scenery, different participants in a different town.
Yeah,
it's all the same.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's always been it's good times, man. It's like when you first break into wrestling business, you're just so excited. Like I know I was like when I first got in, I was just like, okay, I'm a pro wrestler now, And then it went from that to like, hey, you know, I got back then anyway. I got great hair. You know, I'm gonna live my gimmick, and man, I lived my gimmick.
You had great hair.
Listen, at one time, man, my mullet was cooler than Ricky Morton's.
Well, all right.
It was a long time ago, though. You were probably still in high school when I had my cool mullet, though. There, Drake.
Probably.
Yeah, it was many moons ago. But anyway, well, Drake, thank you for joining us for our show, man. It's been
pleasure.
fun, man. Going back
Thank you guys very much.
And walking down memory lane and blowing Chris's mind. I knew that was going to happen.
I mean, man, Drake, thank you so much. Gosh, you brought back some memories there of, South, the Southern Virginia area, the Roanoke, Salem area, and even into the the Southern West Virginia area. What great times to be a part of pro wrestling there, and what a great time to jumpstart your career into the business. And I'm just so tickled pink that if New Dimension Wrestling even had an inkling of the jumpstart to your career, it makes me tickle pink and puts a big smile on my face. The things that you've accomplished over the last 20 some odd years, no one will be able to tell the story but you, and no one better to tell it but you as well. So great tonight, and so glad to be a small part of it.
Well, thank you.
And Chris, I've already told Drake once New Dimension makes a return, he's the first guy that's getting booked.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I might even give Rick Link a call as well. What do you say?
That would be great. And you're just talking about Link real quick, and then I know you're trying to take it home here, Tony. Rick and I actually ended up being on a show together several years later. I want to say 2007 maybe. And I actually went up to him and was like, "You probably don't remember me, but," and then I kind of filled him in, and he remembered. So I thought that was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Really, really good stuff.
That's great. And even today, we're going to approach him again sometime in the near future. He'll remember it one more time, so it'll be even that much sweeter.
That's exactly right. All right. Well, Drake, thank you for joining us again.
Yes,
and fans, make sure that you go like our Facebook page, and of course go on your favorite podcast platform and download all the episodes of the BengeBuster Show. Like our page, and show us some support. And make sure you tune in next week. As next week I've already got a promoter lined up, going to be on the show talking about what it's like to put on a wrestling event now during the COVID-19, to be able to still keep his name out there. So next week's show, I'm going to have the great Jason Freeman, the promoter for NAWA, is going to be joining us next week. So make sure you tune in for that. For Chris, I'm Tony Benge, and for Drake Tungsten, we will see you next week on the BengeBuster Show.
Thank you for listening to the BengeBuster Show. Make sure you like us on Facebook and download us on your favorite podcast platform.